Florida State's injury list for Miami is concerning.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day, here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We're going to have some mailbag questions at the end of the show that I think were absolutely spot on. Thank you to everybody that's been commenting on YouTube. It's a lot of fun to get in there and listen to what everybody has to say. We're going to be talking about several things in regards to Florida State's defensive ends and the pass rush. I have a few thoughts on how the depth chart and how they should get after every quarterback they go against. We're going to talk about that extensively. We're definitely going to hit some recruiting notes. There's some good news coming there. And to begin the show, it's the injury list. Florida State is in a very awkward spot. Depth is better than I thought this year, but there are certain players that if they're not in the lineup, it's a little bit different in big games. But when key players are out for games like Miami or Clemson or NC State or Florida, teams that either you're playing on the road, they're rivals, or both, that's rough. I think that Florida State needs all their starters in every game, obviously, but I've really liked what I've seen so far this season from Ashwin Barker. He hurt his shoulder during the game against Virginia. I don't know if he's going to play. It's a possibility, but the injury report early this week for Mike Norvell is not exactly where you would want it to be. And let's be very clear. Florida State, like any other team, has those guys that just make different plays that other guys can't, whether it's their speed, their length, etc. Barker, as Coach Coop talked about in fall camp, is one of those players that he thought was an NFL guy when he saw him in spring. The measurables were off charts. The way he runs, the way he hits, everything that he has in one package is that guy. And with the scheme that Coach Tony White likes to run as the defensive coordinator, Barker is interchangeable with some other spots if somebody else got hurt too. He could probably play corner in some limited roles, and he can play any of the safety spots, and he's just a guy that makes plays. Shaheem Brown came in and did well, but Barker is probably even better for this scheme. Every scheme makes certain players look different. And Barker's that guy. His length takes away some opportunities for quarterbacks, and you never even hear about Barker. That's a good thing. That means they couldn't throw it because they didn't feel comfortable because he could take the ball away. And further, he's actually a guy that comes down and hits much like a linebacker. I think him being out of the lineup is a problem for Florida State, even if it's for 5 plays. This is a rivalry game with Miami. I know the point spread somewhere around a touchdown favorite for the Canes, and I have no problem with it. But with Barker out, that leaves me more concerned because one of the advantages I think Florida State had is Miami doesn't throw deep a ton. And against Florida State secondary, when healthy, I don't think they would have in this game that much either. Barker being out, that's one more opportunity to get deep. That's one more opportunity to go up against a deep secondary that has guys out on the field not rotating as much. Florida State has talent at safety, don't get me wrong. But they need all of them with how they play. They play 3 safeties at once. So even one of them being out of the lineup is rough for the third and fourth quarters. So there is no doubt if Ashwin Barker does not play, or even if it's limited, that is not good for Florida State. We'll see who steps up. That's the interesting part about college football too. Let's be honest. College football is historically a sport that is full of scenarios where somebody unexpected did something in a big game. It's just the way it's always been. Why, I don't know, but it's just how legends are born. Maybe somebody for FSU steps up and just kills it. But if I had my druthers, I'd like to have a healthy 100% Ashwin Barker, a future NFL safety in Florida State's secondary, roaming just like he always does to make plays in the run game and the pass game. That's tough. A few other notes. Kevin Wynn, how much does he play? Is he impactful, etc.? Let me be very clear on this. There are very few human beings that are physically gifted the way Kevin Wynn is. He's a true freshman. And you're like, Brian, why would a defensive tackle, a true freshman matter? This is not your normal defensive tackle. At 330 plus, he is a destroyer. If Darrell Jackson wasn't at Florida State and Kevin hadn't been injured, he probably would have started from his freshman season's first game on. He's that kind of player. Every school in the country wanted it. There's a reason. He's 330 plus, and he moves like he does, and he has grown man strength. There's no way around it. In the state of Georgia, there are a lot of really good programs, and Kevin plays it. He played at a small school, but they were one of the better programs at his level. And I spoke to coaches saying it's no doubt that he's the best D lineman in this state. And last year in the state of Georgia, there were 4 or 5 D linemen that were national recruits who could go anywhere. And he just coached it. I'll just leave it the name alone, but he's got multiple state championship rings on his finger. Said there's no doubt that Wynn was the best one. That's another good sign. But how healthy is he? Can he take some snaps off of Darrell Jackson at nose guard? And further, if he's really ready to go, can they bump him into the lineup and move Big Darrell to defensive end sometimes? It's an interesting situation because Florida State's moved guys around and done some different things at nose guard. Sometimes it's a zero tech. Sometimes it's a shade. They do a bunch of different stuff up front. I could sit here and do a podcast for 3 hours just on all their defensive fronts. It's a lot of fun. A little geeky and not necessarily perfect for those listening on audio on Spotify and Apple and whatnot. But Florida State's front is multiple, but there's no way around it. To run it at its absolute best, you got to have a massive human being at nose guard. Kevin Wynn's one of those guys that can do it. I'm not sure where he's at, but if Kevin Wynn can play, if he's really ready, I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State used Darrell in a multitude of ways. There aren't many guys like Darrell either. He's even rarer than Kevin because he's not only got the girth, he's 6'5", 6'6". I'd like to see him moved around and used as a playmaker because this is a money game for him. He's auditioning for the NFL in this game. There's no way around it. Is he ready? I don't know, but Big Darrell is a player that if he's able to get unleashed and not getting all those double teams as the inside guy, it would probably help Florida State. Playing defensive end, nose tackle, it doesn't sound much different, but who gets doubled and who doesn't could be a big difference. So we'll see what happens with that. A couple other notes. I'm just curious. Landon Thomas has been playing, but is he ready to be a focal point in the passing game? I've been calling for this for a while, but like I say every week on Locked On Seminoles, I don't believe any injury report ever, and I'm not going to believe the one before a rivalry game especially. If he's truly healthy, we'll know it because they're going to throw him the ball. Not like once or twice, but like he should be a target. He should be somebody they use in the blocking situations just as much as the pass. He should get 30 reps. Is it possible? Yeah. But how healthy is he? And are they confident with him based on Tommy and Landon having a sink in the passing game? If Tommy's not really comfortable with him, he's not going to ask for those plays to be called where the tight end might be focused on. But he could be a weapon. Not many linebackers are good in coverage for any team, Miami or Florida State included. Landon Thomas could be a big part of this game if he's really ready to roll. Next, and this is one that I have no idea what to expect. He's on the depth chart, but Rodell Williams for Florida State. Injured during game number 1 against Bama. He had like 6 carries for 14, 15 yards, something like that in the very first game. Hasn't played since. Is he ready? Not just physically, but leadership-wise. He's seen about everything. He's played at Alabama. He's played at Florida State. He's a graduate student. It's time for him to be an impactful player and not just running the football, not just catching it. I like having guys that have been around a long time for pass pro. I love Chroma. Usman Chroma is a really good player. Usman Chroma is probably going to play in the NFL. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. But I'd rather have the graduate student in on 3rd and 7 than I would the freshman. Unless you're just 100% sending him out for a pass route. Chroma's great at that. But for pass pro, give me the veteran. Sawchuk to a certain degree as well. Let's see what they do, but that's a really big part of this. Next up, we're going to be talking a little bit of recruiting. There's some good news for the Florida State Seminoles coming up here on Locked On Seminoles. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. With every customer conversation, it always counts. So you need your phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer. So no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. With this system at hand, you've got an AI agent. It's a game changer. Somebody that is not going to be at the office, that's okay. It can answer all your after-hours calls, make sure it captures leads, and keeps your business flowing even when you're not there. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got an existing number, they'll port it over. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. If you have not already, become an everydayer here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're having some fun talking Florida State football each and every day. Let's talk a little recruiting. This is kind of fun when you win and when you're relevant again. And when the media is talking about you, it's amazing. It's amazing how Florida State recruiting gets a little bump. Not that they wouldn't have added some players to the class, etc., but make no mistake, beating Bama and just being a team that's fun to watch again. If you take nothing else from this little bit of information on recruiting, it's the on-field performance that's generating the most buzz. And why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? Florida State's got the #1 offense in the country. They're a lot of fun to watch. And their defense is pretty good too. So I think that's a very important point here. A few different players to talk about. But again, overall, there's some momentum. And there's going to be some more names. Hint, they're going to come out of the woodwork over the next month or two. Lock, stock, and barrel. No doubt about it. It's going to happen. Committed elsewhere, etc. That's how recruiting works when you win. But here's a couple notes. Corbin Fordham is committed to Ohio State. He plays at the Bowl School. He's a flex tight end. He's probably athletic enough to play linebacker or defensive end. Just a really good player. 6'3", 220, 215, something like that. He catches the ball well. He's an athlete. He's a guy that can run. He can change directions. I don't really care which side of the ball they want him at. He's just a football player. This is what I like to call a Bobby Bowden special. These kinds of players were brought in for Florida State at running back, moved to DB, moved to right back, tight ends to play D ends, etc. They always found out where the player needed to be once they made it to Florida State. I could see Fordham playing multiple roles, and if it is tight end, he could be an H-back like Pittman, but he's got the frame that he could at least grow into something that could be an inline player in certain situations. He's never going to be the 6'6", 250 kid. His frame isn't that big, but he can be used in a lot of ways, and Gus really likes H-backs in different kinds of tight ends to use in his offense. Ohio State does a good job with their offense in that regard too, but they don't use them as much as what Florida State does. Like Pittman is a feature. He threw a touchdown, ran a touchdown, and caught a touchdown against Virginia. It's kind of hard to argue against how much that position is utilized by the Noles. And I can guarantee you, Florida State's going to be happy enough to tell Fordham all about that. Caden Fordham's a top 300 recruit. He's got offers across country. I'm curious to see what happens because as reported by Noles 24/7 and several other people, he's going to be coming for the Pitt game, I believe it is, but I can't remember for sure. Maybe it's this. He might be this game. I get him mixed up, but he's going to be on campus. I think it's the Miami game. But either way, Fordham's a guy that is really good, and this is a trend that we're going to see. Need to see these in-state kids, especially that you've constantly lost to Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, etc. Need to win a few more of those battles. And if you lose them up front, that's okay. December is still when signing day is. So Florida State's got some time to work on this one. Also, Jacob Curry, another kid out of the Bowl School area, because he's from Jacksonville as well. Point of Vedra Beach, I believe that is right there on the edge of Jacksonville. Jacob Curry, just another kid Ohio State's offered. He was originally committed to the Northwestern Wildcats. He has decommitted. He's got several offers. I don't really know where he's going to go. He's the one. That's right. He's the kid that's going to visit for the Pittsburgh game. Ovi, by the way, it's not just an unofficial visit. That's a big one. Florida State needs probably at least one more linebacker in this class. He's a bit of a tweener right now, another Bobby Bowden special. Kid that's growing into his body, probably be a weak side linebacker in a traditional 4-3 scheme. He's listed at 6'1", like 210. Let's see how big he gets before we figure out where he's going to play exactly. But in Florida State's very versatile scheme, they'll figure it out. He might even be used as a rover in certain situations against teams that are more run heavy, maybe middle linebacker against other teams. But this kid had 101 tackles last year as a junior. He finds the football. Another guy that's seen his stock rise. In Florida State, they certainly need more linebackers, with a lot of their key players at the position being juniors or seniors this year. So I'm curious to see what happens with Curry. There are a lot of guys that they've got coming in, by the way, for this coming game. I don't know the list yet, and I'm not really that worried about it. I always tell people I hate the list early in the week because kids change their mind constantly on which games they're going to. At the earliest, I really don't try to read too much on the recruiting notes until Thursday. I know that sucks because it's the end of the week and the shows are about done, but the kids just don't make their decisions. So half the list right now is still probably contemplating different games. That's just how it works. I may try to get some of that information in on Friday with what I hear just to keep you updated. So look for some more information on specifics. And very key point, it'll be interesting to see which juniors and sophomores end up at Florida State this weekend. That's really the kids I'm more interested in. There are a handful of seniors, by all means, but for the most part, the class of 26 is pretty much done for everybody, not just Florida State. So this coming weekend against Miami, which juniors are on hand? Because a lot of them are going to want to see both teams. A lot of them growing up in families where different members were either Miami or Florida State fan. It's going to be interesting to see who shows. So we'll get into that. Next, this is something that I've been talking about a lot, and a lot of fans on the YouTube page, on every platform possible, Noles 24/7, you name it. Nolecast has talked about on their podcast, etc. The pass rush. I have my own ideas on what Florida State needs to do next if they're going to fix this. We're going to talk about that right here on Locked on Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. If you want to hit on something, how about NFL MVP, rushing leader, receiving touchdowns leader? Maybe it's which team you think is going to win the NFC Championship. Whatever it may be, player props, doesn't make any difference. They can find a different way for you on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. All right, it's time to talk about one of the most important things for Florida State football from now until the end of the season. How do you fix this pass rush without just bringing the house and going cover zero? Because that's not an option very often. That's not a good idea. If you don't believe me, look up the highlight. Indiana game-winning touchdown against Iowa. Iowa's a team that traditionally drops 7, plays cover 2. I mean, they are the most generic defense in the country. Late in the game against Indiana last week, I don't know why they did this. They went cover 0. Indiana ran a slant, and the game was over. Missed tackle, touchdown. Florida State relies on passive coverage and changing it up to create really dysfunctional throws. Like, what are you doing? As soon as you release it, I shouldn't have done that. They try to fool the quarterback. That's their strategy. And they got 3 picks in the last game, even though they didn't win. Like, they know what they're doing. They confused a graduate student quarterback multiple times. It works. But you can only cover for so long. At some point, your 4-man rush just has to get home at a better rate. Brendan Sinone over at Noles 24/7, he posted some horrific, even worse than what I thought, statistics on the pass rush. Go read his article or his thoughts. But in a nutshell, how long it takes Florida State to get to the quarterback on average is at the very bottom of the barrel in college football. I mean, it is grotesque. If that doesn't get fixed to a certain degree, the things I'm going to talk about here in a second, maybe they're what they're going to do anyway, or maybe not. But no matter what, if those numbers are even close in the Miami game, they're not winning, and there's a really good chance they're not winning by 10 or more. That can't happen. So here's my take, and I'm just being blunt here. And if I offend anybody, too bad. I'm just going to let it rip because I'm not shy. James Williams has been a disappointment. He's come close on some pass rushes, but he's still not that consistent. And he's not that good at holding the edge either. He's just okay at it. It's time to give the Desir twins a shot to play a lot of reps, maybe even start. Depending on how this week in practice goes, it has to be on the table. If it's not them starting, maybe there's another combination. And keep in mind, Florida State runs variations of a 3-man and a 4-man line. They mix it up. But in a 3-man line, I wouldn't have any problem with the Desir twins starting with Big Darryl in the middle. They can't be any less impactful. Maybe play James fewer snaps. I don't know. But they can't go status quo. That I'm steadfast with. That doesn't work. And I totally grasp with Tony's scheme. Again, it's a little passive on the back end, but it's making quarterbacks throw into tight windows and make very precise decisions on when to release the ball and how they use their eyes to try to move safeties. If they're not really good at it, the ball's going the other way. Florida State, again, they just picked the ball off 3 times against a graduate student quarterback, and he's pretty good. But they confuse people. Imagine what Florida State's defense would be able to do if they had even a slightly below average pass rush. And to be clear, they do not even have that. It is awful. They have to fix it. I'm just suggesting lineup changes. It's not the only way to do this by any means. But if you're not going to try the Desir twins, maybe it's Jason Jenkins in another capacity. Maybe he plays more nose guard, and then Big Darryl moves out. It has to be something in that realm. It has to be. If they come out and run the same thing against Miami, it's not going to work. I've been very complimentary of Tony White, and for the most part, he's taken a lot of really unusual parts and placed them in different places. But the one thing I didn't see working, and it's not, unfortunately, I wish I was wrong, taking some of the linebackers and playing them at the jack spot. They don't have the length and the height to play that spot the way they want. Unfortunately, they don't have anybody on the roster to really do that the way they want. Jaden Jones would be the closest, but he's played down some too. I don't think he's really twitchy enough for what they need. They desperately need this 6'4", 240-pound guy that is just a blur off the edge. It's not on the roster. So that spot aside, that's going to be a problem all year. Your true down defensive ends in the 3-man front, I would go with the Desir twins and or Jason Jenkins in some capacity with Darryl moving around. Because if you don't, Miami's just going to pick you apart on 3rd and 5. Carson Beck doesn't miss much. He is one of the best zone passing quarterbacks in the country. No question. He's done it for years. And Notre Dame, who's got a lot of good athletes, he was 13 for 16 against Notre Dame against zone. Florida State is predominantly a zone defense. I don't like the matchup anyway, but that's what zone does, and that's who you are. You're not going to suddenly go to cover 1 on 80%. So the only way you can really fix that is to get home with 4. You're going to blitz a little more, but I really don't think the Noles are going to blitz heavy. I don't. They're going to want to be very sound to make sure they hold the edges so none of the running backs get outside on runs, and 2, to try to hold off the screen game because Miami can throw it pretty good in that regard as well. And their running backs, Shamar Brown, whether it's – I don't care which one. All 3 of them are good at it. It doesn't make any difference. Fletcher's good, etc. They will all make big plays. I think Florida State will play pretty conservative on that, try to keep everything in front of them. Some way, from hell or high water, they got to get home with 4 more because their pass rush has been embarrassing. Again, I like the Desir twins doing that, but we'll see. Maybe Deontay McCray plays a little more. Maybe he starts. Some capacity, though, they can't just go with the basic formations and what they're doing. They're going to have to run more stunts. They're going to have to move some guys around. We'll see what happens. Finally, just want to do a couple of mailbag questions. And this one's pretty good. There's been a lot of people commenting on the YouTube page. Credit to everybody that's been doing it. I'm going to be discussing this more and more. I'm going to do some segments that I just cut out of the show. Matter of fact, I might take this segment and cut it out and just separate it. So those of you that comment, and I bring up some of them, and I'm not going to be able to do all. Some of these end up with 100+ comments just on one show, and it's great, but I can't do 100 in the next show. So from Blake Nagy, I love this Noles team. It's a breath of fresh air after the season. I didn't expect perfect. I expected 9-3 or 8-4. This team fought till the end against Virginia, even though it didn't go our way. Our offense can put up points, so if our defense steps up against Miami, we can make a game of it. I think that's about as fair a statement as you get. He's not saying they're going to win. He's not saying they're going to lose, but he's just asking for the defense to play better. That's fair. The offense needs to put up points. Let me add one thing to what Blake said. Let's get rid of the turnovers. Giving Miami a short field is akin to just handing them the game. Catnip season is all over the map. Florida State will play to the helmet and win. Rather blunt statement. It's just the opposite of what Blake had to say. Catnip's is basically saying, hey, the Noles will rise to the occasion and play to the standard that Florida State University is expecting from its football program. It wouldn't shock me in the least. The history of this rivalry has a bunch of that. Underdogs, especially like slight underdogs in this rivalry, have won a bunch of times. Home and away. So it wouldn't shock me at all if that happened. Eric Estrada. Realistically speaking, Florida State will need explosive plays to win the game, plain and simple. Florida State can't hang with Miami in the trenches. The UVA game proved that. If Miami has an opening drive like they had all year long running the ball for scores, it will be a long night for Florida State. Now, if Florida State creates a lead and has explosive plays, I don't think Miami's offense can hang. The one point he's making here that I think is interesting is Miami has not had to play from behind. How would that go? We don't know. Florida State is a team that's not much fun to play against when they have a lead because they use different variations of tempo, and that's not a lot of fun. To that end, Miami hasn't done anything but play slow, and slower. They don't really try to throw the football all around. It's not an old school Miami team from the late 90s, early 2000s. This is 1988 Michigan football in Miami helmets. Conservative as all get out. Don't throw the ball deep a lot. Precision passing, run the ball between the tackles. How would they do if Florida State gets a lead? It's going to be interesting if that happens. MD Marshall 100. Why not the two-pointer instead of going to overtime? He is referring to the Virginia game. And it's an interesting question. I wonder how much Norvell really thought about it. Gus has got a lot of two-point plays that are good. I wouldn't have been against it. I'm not sure it's the right answer, but it is a good question. Thank you for posting that. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. Become an everydayer. We are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. You can find me on X at FBScout_Florida, and wherever you get your podcasts, we're available. Check us out. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles.